I don't think we should get ahead of ourselves here, but I do want to say that this fracture that you saw now with Zelensky at the NATO summit, Zelensky is an actor. Zelensky does not make any decisions, even concerning his own country. The goal of Ukraine is for weapons companies to turn a profit and for Western countries to get rid of weapons they don't need or don't like for whatever reason. You know, cluster bombs, for example. These things have been sitting there for decades. They don't want them out. They're giving all of their used old crap to Ukraine and sending these people off to die. Zelensky, you know, I'm not saying this because he was an actor by profession. So is Ronald Reagan. But hey, so are all politicians, right? All politicians are actors. What Zelensky did is he broke character. When he starts posting this tweet about how absurd it is, right? That there's no time frame given for when Ukraine will be admitted to NATO, and they don't even tell Ukraine when it will be invited to begin the process to join NATO. Now, obviously, you know, maybe if you or I were standing in his shoes, we'd maybe feel the same way. I mean, I don't think I would, but you know, he is de facto in NATO. You understand? Zelensky has the most combat experienced and proficient professional army in Europe. And again, Ukraine is not really Europe, right? But out of all the NATO countries, Ukrainian troops have the most combat experience at this point in time in history. They are highly trained and you know, they've been training them since 2014 and arming them since 2014. So he is already in de facto in NATO. And when he broke character and he starts saying, you know, you guys need to give us an invitation, Ben Wallace, so that's our defense secretary in the UK, and Jake Sullivan, the national security advisor in the US, reminded him who is running the show, and they put him back in his place. So they did it in their own ways. They said, you need to be more thankful, which is basically a démarche. They dressed them down publicly. Zelensky thought he can humiliate them and force their hand in public, and they gave him a taste of his own medicine and put him back in his place. Now, the word invite was eventually included in the text, but it's not an invite. NATO give no time frame or timeline of when they will admit Ukraine or even invite Ukraine. Why do you think that is? Why on earth would NATO invite Ukraine to the goddamn summit and train Ukrainian troops and give Ukraine weapons and send, you know, Ukraine with all of their support to fight the Russians? Why would they do that and then not even invite him or tell him when he will be invited? Why do you think that is? Well, it's the same reason that they've been telling Ukraine since 2008. Since 2008. That they will someday be in NATO. They don't actually want Ukraine in NATO because if Ukraine joins NATO, and Zelensky knows this, Article 5 is triggered and they all have to come in and join him. That means they actually have to put their money where their mouths are, right? So Biden is not interested in actually having to send American troops to Ukraine because that would not sit well with the American public, nor would it in the UK or in any other European country. This is especially true after Vietnam and after the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Not that anyone is saying the United States is a victim. It wasn't. But people in the United States, you know, having television and seeing through the media what is happening there, and you have more American troops that have been killed by suicide than in combat. It kind of, you know, it gives you an impression of as to why people would be against that. It's extremely difficult today to send Americans in those numbers to fight in a war, and especially when you can kill a country with sanctions, use drones, and so on, right? And especially when you can send another army. Why send your own when you can send another army? Why would you do that? No one would do that. Anyone who's spineless certainly would do that, but we are dealing with such people. They gather around and they do this photo op, right? this family photo in NATO. I mean, this is like taking a photo of, you know, Jason with his chainsaw and Jack the Ripper. You know, these people have more blood on their hands than anyone on earth. After what they did in Syria and what they did in Libya, anyone calling this a defensive alliance needs to be slapped in the face. You don't get to assassinate one of the greatest African and Arab leaders in history, Gaddafi, and plunge the most prosperous country in Africa into slavery, literally, and talk about defense. You don't get to occupy with 2 NATO armies, with Turkey and the US, Syria, stealing the oil, and talk to me about defense. Shove your head up your ass where it belongs. The same thing with Iraq and Afghanistan and Yugoslavia. Do you think these people are symbols of unity? I don't think so. It's good for people to know what's happening and to know the truth, but for them, it's not a good thing for you to know the truth. I mean, please just look at this horrendous photo op. It's so, you know, choreographed, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. For the family photo, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing you know, photo ops and stuff like that. Of course, they all took the trouble and time to go there, and you know, they're spending their time doing much worse things. But my point is that this whole thing is like pure war propaganda. You know, they just want you to believe in NATO, and NATO's a beautiful thing, and everyone is united, and you know, they all love each other, and don't show anyone what's really happening, whether it's on the front lines or behind the scenes.